Russia trailed behind the rest of the world in industrialization, but when it hit hard. The serfs were freed, factories were opened, a Trans-Siberian Railroad was built. Progress was good, according to the leaders of the time. Industrialization would make Russia great, an economic and military superpower. In 1904, Russia decided to expand into new territory and find new ports. Korea looked like a good spot, a warm water port on the Pacific, so Russia promptly declared war with Japan to claim it. The Tsar and his ministers assured the country that Russian troops would deliver a quick, decisive victory. Unfortunately, the Japanese emperor promised his subjects the same thing. He was right. Humiliated, demoralized, and starving, the Russian commoners and factory workers put together a list of grievances to deliver to the Tsar while he was staying at his winter palace in Petrograd, now called St. Petersburg. Unfortunately, the Tsar had left that morning to attend his ill son back in Moscow, so command of the grounds fell to a guard captain or similar underling. On that Sunday morning, January 22nd, 1905, a large group of peaceful, unarmed protesters filled the square outside the Winter Palace, only to be shot at by a line of soldiers standing guard. Over 100 were killed in this incident, known thereafter as Bloody Sunday. Though he had no say in the matter, the blame fell on Tsar Nicholas II, probably marking the end of any significant support from the Russian people. The fact that his wife began to associate soon after with Grigory Rasputin, one of the creepiest people in world history, who did not in fact have a talking bat, though it would have been appropriate, didn't help at all, and the dynasty generally slid downhill from there. Nicholas did give a token effort to quiet the masses. He created the Duma, a democratically elected parliament. In reality, the Duma had little power over anything important, achieved almost nothing that helped the Russian people, and quickly became a hotbed for dissent and revolutionary ideas. While the richer malcontents convened in Petrograd to discuss the state of Russia, the common people continued to feel the effects of factory life, Tsarist apathy, and, starting in 1914, war with Germany. Food shortages became the norm, and, as your average teenager knows, there is no quicker way to make a large group of people very angry than to refuse to feed them. On February 27, 1917, after a few days of protest marches and general rioting in the streets, the people of Petrograd joined together to form the Petrograd Council of Workers' and Soldiers' Deputies, which is a fancy way of saying that they joined together to overthrow the Tsar. It worked. On March 1st, the Petrograd Council, or Soviet, declared the army under its control and created more Soviets, and the next day the Tsar abdicated the throne in favor of his brother, who refused to have anything to do with it, thus showing himself to be smarter than the rest of the Romanovs put together. The Petrograd Soviet created a provisional government to run the country now that there wasn't a Tsar. On April 3rd, a sealed train from the German government sent Vladimir Lenin back from Switzerland, where he'd spent his time since the 1905 outbreak. He'd actually been in charge of the Bolsheviks, that's the people who would take over and become the Communist Party, the whole time through various underground organizations. Once they had Lenin back, it only took 6 months for the Bolsheviks to take a majority of support in the Petrograd Soviet. Should give that one a timeline, I'm sure. There we go. Yeah. It only took the Bolsheviks another 2 months to completely take over Russia. The fact that they ended the fighting in Moscow, which had been going on for quite a while and generally making a lot of people angry, helped a lot. It was around this time that a few of those countries in Eastern Europe that no one remembers or cares about started declaring independence while Russia wasn't paying attention. It didn't stick, and on February 8th of the next year, Bolshevik troops occupied Kiev, Ukraine, taking control of its ruling council, the Kievan Rada, who had declared itself independent. This didn't stop Lithuania from declaring independence just over a week later, on February 16th. For the record, Ukraine became a German puppet government within the next few months anyway, so it didn't change much. The march of progress after the Bolshevik coup is familiar to everyone. The government proceeded to take over large industry and means of production, fight with its neighbors, dole out roughly equal shares of wealth, and shoot anyone who didn't agree with it. Skip forward in time to the Red Scare, which we all learned about in literature class while we were studying The Crucible. Timeline entry, there we go. The Red Scare took place in the 40s and 50s, right after World War II, drawing on the national fear of Soviet spies in America trying to bring about nuclear attack. Senator Joseph McCarthy, that's him, led the charge to blacklist, imprison, and otherwise inconvenience people he suspected of communism, terrorism, left-wingism, being weird, etc. The Red Scare is a prime example of how events in one area of the world can impact other areas in large ways, though, in all fairness, we already knew that. One more timeline entry. I'm almost done. This is more of an epilogue than anything. Alright. If you look at a map these days, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics is conspicuously missing. On August 24, 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, leaving a number of independent countries behind. The largest and most familiar of these is Russia, but the list also includes Latvia, Estonia, the other Georgia, Armenia, Lithuania, Azerbaijan, Ukraine, Moldova, and anything ending in Stan. Communism was finally proven to be a bad idea, though it had a remarkable penchant for looking good on paper, and hasn't quite been wiped out of the world yet. In the aftermath of the Soviet collapse, Russia suffered through years of inflation and economic reform, and has been brought to some kind of stability by Prime Minister Putin. However, Putin has since been asked to step down, though this is still a work in progress.